Hello, brothers and sisters. Thank you very passionately for your patronage to my postings and my peaceful intent at this time. I love you all individually and collectively. I would like to say very maturely and openly that I feel I understand you very much so as a human being, even if I do not know you as a person. Humans are a species with traits. People are individuals with characteristics. I would like us to start by thinking about something that we are very thankful for on this day. Personally, I am very thankful to have one of my children here with me this morning. And I'm very confident that globally, we all want healthy children and healthy economies as we continue on our quest towards world peace. Thank you very sincerely for learning and respecting the English language, allowing me to share my insights more globally. It is more significant to me at this time due to the majority sharing in the intuitional concerns of the financial offset and of our children's health. I'm very thankful to God for my life. I hope you are thankful for your life. Before I get started, I would like us all to take a moment to reflect inwardly on our own healthy spiritual understanding. Thank you for not abandoning your spirituality as a human being. May the powers that be the powers that set us free. In the people-government relationship, there is specific roles that the people must uphold and the government must uphold to indicate that peace remains the agenda, and although we may be working and suffering, we are still ultimately working towards protection of our children's health and our adults' finances. Now, in reference to the people, they don't want to be in government, but they still desire a mature, healthy government that protects human rights and their children's futures. If the people are faced with a severe financial circumstance and they choose not to speak up, they are very much so abandoning their responsibility in the people-government relationship, and therefore will continue to endure severe and worsening conditions on their silence, and simply fulfilling their role in the people-government relationship. If such a financial offset should occur, the people's role is to very peacefully speak up and indicate the offset, and in that they have prepaid the government to make big calls with the economy that only the government has the ability to make. However, the people continue to earn currency and support that government on the intuitional, logical, and realistic expectation of modern protection of our children's health and our adults' finances. In reference to the government, if peace is the agenda of the government, and it intends on being a long-term government, it needs to uphold an extreme maturity to the peace agenda. There is zero room for leniency when it comes to our international governance on the intuitional, logical, and realistic concern for our world's children. Now, if a government does not have a people that speak up during these severe times, it's not entirely their fault that they continue in that direction. However, if that same government is governing people that very much so lead by peaceful example and peacefully stand up to indicate the offset, if that government then denies their role in the people-government relationship by not using their position to make large calls to protect the children of the world and the working adults, well, that government is very much so denying their role in the government-people relationship. At those times of severe circumstances, the government are the only people that have the power to humanely and maturely make decisions that have major impact on the world's financial understanding going forward. And it can be whatever that mature government decides based on the intuitional understanding that we are organizing our world using numerical law. And when tragedy strikes, the fundamental numerical law becomes priority to government law. Not that some government law should not be permitted, because it is not all bad, and very directly but majorly, a lot of those focuses of the governing individuals must get put on the back burner for the sake of dealing with and correcting and modernizing the financial expectation as their role in the government-people relationship to protect the people and their children. Those type of severe circumstances, they only come around once every so many decades, but they are guaranteed to occur given the understanding of how long humans have been on the planet and the inevitability of a financial offset, especially during a pandemic where the people are advised to stay home and not earn currency. That would be a very significant time for that mature government to make big calls that are realistic but very practical in a very calm, protecting manner. If the people pay for protection that they don't get, well, they're not going to trust those individuals, and they're not going to want to work at the base foundation under those individuals on the understanding that they promise to protect the people and have not. If that same government does make large calls and help minimize the global offset, obviously working towards a peaceful agenda, those same people will respect those individuals and desire to continue working at the foundation of that currency and that governing. Also on the understanding that those people don't want to be in government, but they do appreciate the mature financial protection that they've received from their family trees earnings, basically, because by the time one of those type of severe circumstances occur, well, you're no longer discussing the matter of that individual's earnings, but you're looking at the funds that were paid by family trees over decades for a protection to come at a time when the finances need to be modernized for the protection of a peaceful civilization. That is not unreasonable or unpractical in its expectation. I'm going to give you some examples of what a mature, caring government could be looking at this time. I need to be very direct with you before I get started. I fully understand that people are probably going to think that that's ridiculous or that's unreasonable. These people are not going to do that. That's not going to happen. And I want to very maturely point out to you that is the acceptance of the fact that the protection is not there. Because when you don't expect them to uphold human rights, they're not going to. And if you are an individual interested in making mature financial decisions and financial advancements globally right now in reference to this massive global financial offset, I'm very thankful for your interest in restoring human rights. I am working very hard every day as an individual to try to help bring some clarity to the situation and restore human rights for the world's children and health protection for the world's children through nature-based perspectives that offer more long-term solutions to many modern health concerns. Thank you for your maturity in accepting that information. At this time, the people's practical protection of the physical currency has been removed rather than protected. The banks don't have a fraction of the honest cash earnings to give back to us if we wanted them, and in that, our physical practical protection from corrupted online currencies has not been protected but removed. In that, an online currency is very much so in need. However, briefly but directly, I do believe a mature government would be concerned with replenishing the people's practical protection as they make some big calls in their position to help aid the public at this way as the individuals continue to work, suffering a bit, but knowing that things will be better for their children. So, an online currency is a very modern concept and it's very doable with very reasonable and modern exchange rates so that we can be modern and continue breathing. However, we are still paying for internet and forced to use an online currency. So if you are an individual that is so financially strained at this time that you cannot afford internet, you also cannot access your own honest earnings as an individual, because your currency is online and you can't afford your internet, so you're not able to access your own earnings. So, since an online currency seems to be what has to happen at this point due to the removal of the practical protection, the government has the power and the means to maturely figure something out with the internet companies and the homeowners where internet can be automatically included in your rent or your home payment, on the understanding that it's included in having a home or renting a home, because if you are, you need access to your funds, so you need to have internet. It's not just free with every phone sitting around, but at the same time, it kind of would be, in that the internet companies can benefit, but it doesn't have to come out of the individual's gross earnings, more so installed into their home or rent payment as a necessity to having an online currency. Along with that internet currency for homeowners and renters, they're also going to need water and power. So, with the responsibility of the mortgage payment or the rent payment, financially, is figured out on the governing end to aid the population, in that if they are responsible enough to work, pay their tax, and pay their mortgage/rent, power, water, and internet comes with that as a modern suggestion going forward, and protection of the people and of the online currency in place, so that nobody gets left out. Additionally, we are very much so supposed to be governed towards self-sufficiency and not dependency, on the intuitional understanding that self-sufficient workers are proud, happy workers and will work many, many hours earning the currency without any issue, because they are very much so working, but also supplying a good living for their family and their children. It's also intuitionally understood that if the financial offset gets to a degree where an individual simply cannot earn enough currency in a week to supply a basic but simple living for themselves and their children, well, there is a financial situation there in reference to the governing of the numerical law. A caring government with peace in its agenda does not force their hard-working, proud individuals into dependency, on the mature understanding that a self-sufficient mind can be more peaceful with themselves and others, while a dependent mind is guaranteed to feel more mental anguish over their own insufficiency to supply even a basic living for their children. That is just a mature governing position. However, we are undeniably being governed towards dependency. And I am very sad to say that, because again, this is family trees of suffering for protection that is being denied by the current immature individuals in the position. If the individuals in position did make the drastic measures to protect the people and very clearly indicated their peaceful agenda by maintaining human rights, there would be no need for them to feel like they wouldn't continue in their position. There would be no need for them to fear that form of assessment of their judgment calls and their governance, because it would be undeniable that they were protecting the people in that way, the way that the people very much so paid for. However, I'm sorry, but very maturely, not many people actually expect this particular group of individuals to have the maturity to assess the financial offset, and that is very directly the sign of our need for our human rights. That is the mentality that has developed over a majority due to their lack of protection. And when you need your human rights, it never feels good. It feels very desperate. And in 2022, we need to financially figure out how we are going to assess the situation, because it needs to be priority. The other focuses of government should take back burner when globally the people stand up peacefully and lead by peaceful example to indicate the offset in the people-government relationship. That government then makes those concerns top priority, on the understanding that it's not 2 or 3 people complaining about it. We're talking about a population globally standing up and indicating a financial offset without violence, minimized violence, and respect for authorities like police officers and people in positions, because we all just want a peaceful agenda. And that doesn't mean that we all have to think the same. And realistically, we know in 2022, it's impossible for us all to think the same. It's not a reasonable expectation. However, a peaceful agenda must be in place for our world governance at this time and at all times, in sake of a peaceful civilization. There are a lot of currencies that exist in the world, some more severe, some more used than others, and they all have the right to exist and be governed in the way they feel fit, including the money currency. However, we have rights from 1948 that allows the people to call the governing out as fraudulent on the people's finances and health, should that particular group of individuals be given enough time to guide the world towards peace, and also have a world crisis to maturely assess. And when they do maturely assess that again, the people-government relationship will remain in good standing. So, if it's not done, the people-government relationship will be harmed and decreasing, because the government is denying their role in the government-people relationship. But governing is still required, and an online currency is required. And I believe very maturely, with humanity in mind, we need to develop an online currency with fair exchange rates to protect people with lots of money and protect people with hardly any money, and find a more reasonable middle ground so we can continue breathing, because that is the job of this particular group of individuals that is continuing to deny it. But they are by no means the only individuals on the planet that could do that. And since they're giving us no choice but to take it in our own hands, well, we have plenty of healthy-minded, well-intended human beings on this planet that would be honored to be involved in such a process to protect the people and to restore human rights as peaceful, loving human beings, protecting our civilization in 2022. Due to my nature-based lifestyle and the longevity of this perception and this living, I do feel very qualified to apply my consciousness towards such a development of such a currency without thinking about myself at all. And very maturely, if something like that was to occur, the individuals that collected to develop it, you don't need to get paid for it. You don't need anything for it, because you will be rewarded in your own ways when you go back to what you were doing prior to, but you can breathe. Personally, if I was to be trusted in such a circumstance, it would be my honor, and I'd just come back and be a pizza cook, be with my kids. That's what I want. I want to be with my children and just work and pay to an honest, modern governance. If an online currency is necessary, well, that's very doable. And very maturely, humans have agreed to be governed on numerical law, on the very bold fact that the human mind is uncertain and the numerical law never changes. So, as long as peace remains in the agenda and the citizens have an understanding of flexibility in the financial situation of the world, the numerical law will very much so expose whether a government is being mature and modern or if they are being selfish and corrupt. That's not my rule. That is the law of the numerical law, and that is why we have agreed to peacefully govern our world on numerical law. It's not personal. You could very clearly see how, if a human mind got away from itself in that position, it would not be able to admit it, and it would continue to cause harm. So, very maturely, I personally don't have any need to harm that individual. I think we should help this individual understand the severity of what's happening, but ultimately focus on correcting the situation for the sake of the health of our children and the security of our peaceful civilization. Thank you all very much for your interest in my life's work and my perspective on these topics. You are free to completely ignore my perspective. You are free to govern your life how you wish. I'm not a dictator. I am very, very much so working very hard to restore human rights. With the lack of protection over the family trees, in our health and our finances, ultimately we need peaceful, loving human beings that are well-intended to come together, correct this for the world's children, so we can go back to doing all the things that we were doing before COVID, but better and more united than we ever could have imagined before the development of the English language as a world language. Without this opportunity to assess the finances of the world and correct them in a more modern, reasonable expectation for prosperous futures for our children and restoration of our human rights. I'm going to go for now. Peace and love to all of God's children, regardless of status, age, gender, geography, or mother tongue. May the powers that be the powers that set us free. Thank you for not abandoning your spirituality as a human and for your interest in human rights. Bye for now.